Hello and welcome to Creator Weekly Live for January 19th, 2025. These are interesting times, and this week I've got some updates from Instagram and the social web, but of course the big news is ByteDance being banned in the US. That is TikTok and video editor CapCut, also a bunch of other apps, Lemonade, a superhero game called Marvel Snap, and some other apps. That's what people are talking about, so we'll talk about that. Welcome if you're here live. I'd love to hear what you think about this week's updates. At the end, I'm going to have a segment about what people were talking about 10 years ago. Interesting times then, too, but not as eventful as this week. All right, so let me get started. And first, I want to give a big shout out to YouTube. So they have offices in Los Angeles. I take it they're closed because of the big fires, but one of the things that they are doing is helping creators. And Google is giving like $15 million to various organizations for recovery. But YouTube specifically said when it's safe to reopen their offices in LA, they plan to offer YouTube production facilities to impacted creators and artists as they begin to recover and rebuild their businesses. And they're also going to host events to bring the YouTube community together. So I think this is a great thing that will help people affected by the fire beyond just the basics of living, which is what a lot of the other charitable organizations are actually working on. I'll mention that, LA, tons of actors and musicians and other creatives. Of course, there's going to be fundraisers. There is the LA Fire Relief Live Telethon, which is, I think, mostly actors and comedians and so forth. And there's also a Fire Aid benefit concert. Those are the last week in January. I'll have links when those are happening. They should be available on live streaming platforms, including YouTube and Twitch. So I want to say a big hello to everyone who's here live. I see Craig and Andrew and Jolyn and Eileen. It's great to see you all here. Again, I'd love to hear what you think about this week's updates. So, of course, the big update. The big update this week is that ByteDance did have to shut down in the US. This means that the TikTok and CapCut websites are not available at all if you're in the US, and they've been removed from the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. So just to give some background, this was a law that was passed almost a year ago. It was actually started by Donald Trump, who had an executive order. And it's all this talk about TikTok being a national security concern. TikTok fought this. ByteDance, the parent company, fought this, going all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said the law can go into effect. And so here we are. One of the things that ByteDance asked for is reassurances that it would not be enforced. This was posted on Friday. They have a statement of possible shutdown. They're asking the Biden administration to give them really clear assurances that people wouldn't get into trouble, but they couldn't do that. And the issue, as I understand it, is that the app stores, so the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store, they are actually subject to fines if they keep these apps available because they're against the law now, and they're not taking reassurances, oh, we won't enforce that because it could come back and bite them. The only thing that politicians like less than TikTok is these big tech companies, so they're not going to risk that. And it's kind of interesting to see what happened next. These sites all went down yesterday evening. So the deadline was today, but they turned it off last night before it was the 19th in the US anywhere. There was an interesting statement. If you went to the TikTok app or the TikTok website, it says a law banning TikTok has been enacted in the US. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok for now. And then it says, we are fortunate that President Trump has indicated he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office tomorrow. Please stay tuned. So that's a pretty obvious statement aimed right at Trump. But if you go to TikTok today, or at least if I go to TikTok today, what I'm seeing is just an error page. So I'm thinking that direct plea to Trump was not successful. And it's bad. Now, ByteDance is not just TikTok, though. This banned all of their apps. And it banned CapCut. I see Eileen says, I see more people upset about CapCut. They didn't know it was owned by ByteDance too. And yeah, that's what I'm seeing also. I think it's interesting that using CapCut has given videos on TikTok a specific look, especially the sort of green screen with people behind it, and various templates that they use. And if you had the pro version of CapCut, you could download them. There's no watermark. And so people uploaded them to YouTube and to Instagram and other places. I think that is going to have a bigger overall effect. And again, if you go to the CapCut site and you're in the US, you'll see an error page that says they're working on it. You can download your data. So it's not like they're locking people out completely. Instead, it's basically you can't use it. You can export your data. And I have not found any app that's exactly the equivalent of CapCut. YouTube offers the YouTube Create app. I've been using that, but it's not as full-featured as CapCut. It doesn't have templates. It doesn't have nearly all of the options that CapCut did. So there really isn't a good, easy replacement. Also, also YouTube Create is only for Android, and so it doesn't really help if you have an iPhone. Andrew says, the only solution is another law reversing the present law. So good luck with that. Yeah, I think that is the issue. My understanding is that they've been talking with Trump, and Trump told them that they had to sell, like the law says. You know, the law, it has gone all the way up. Give me a moment. I seem to have lost my microphone for some reason. I don't know how it comes unattached. Just that kind of morning. All right. So it's an interesting thing, though. How is Congress going to reverse this law when they made such a huge deal about it being a national security threat? I mean, are they going to come back and say, well, it's still a national security threat, but people don't like it, so we're just going to change our mind, or what? So I think that this is going to be interesting. Jolyn points out that there is a really terrible effect on creatives and their livelihoods. It is absolutely true. It's bad. And of course, there's something to be said about this being an example of why you should not put all your eggs in one basket. If you're a creative, use multiple platforms, but it's not quite that easy because different platforms have different styles, different vibes. And what you do on TikTok to be successful is not necessarily the same as what will work on Instagram or YouTube. It was a huge audience and it really sucks. So, Jolyn says, I just logged into the TikTok website. Well, who knows what's going on? Maybe it's back. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. I wasn't expecting anything to happen till today anyway, and then it did. And so check it out. I don't know what to say here. I think that we will see changes and updates over the next week, so that will be interesting how it goes. But I just wanted to mention that one of the things that's happening in these weirdest of times so the sort of side story to all this is that a bunch of US TikTok users have started using the Chinese platform Xiaohongshu, which is known in English as RedNote. According to Reuters, there were at least 700,000 new accounts just over the past few days. And Duolingo has seen a boost in people learning Mandarin because RedNote is a completely Chinese website. It's not just owned by a Chinese company, it's all in Chinese. All the users mostly are people in China. And so it's this interesting sort of culture exchange happening. My understanding is people were using this site. TikTokers were using this site previous to all this shutdown, especially in the sort of beauty niches. But this was a big surge. And the people joining don't really understand the Chinese policies or the platform's policies, which are together there. And probably the English moderators of the site, the Chinese speaking moderators of the site don't speak enough English to necessarily understand what's happening. I think there will be moderation. I think this is sort of a flash in the pan. And it's just another sign. I think that people are unhappy with their options. And this is kind of a rebellion against going to boring sites like Instagram or YouTube. This is something new, exciting. It's not actually a video site. It's sort of like a cross between Instagram and Pinterest with some home shopping network mixed in. And I've been reading some interesting information from Ryan Broderick, who writes at Garbage Day, talking about how these Chinese apps are really focused on social shopping. Shopping is built in. This is really their core. And that never really caught on so much at the US. There is selling on TikTok, or was selling on TikTok and YouTube and other platforms, but it's not as central to these apps as it is in China. So it's a different vibe. We'll see what happens. All right, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit here. On Instagram, brand new feature launched yesterday. You can now use the Reels editor to create Reels up to 3 minutes long. This is the same as the update in the YouTube Shorts editor. I don't think the timing is coincidental. I think they pushed this out before the TikTok ban. And the other update on Instagram is that they added a new feature where you can see what your friends are liking. So Instagram's focus for 2025 is creativity and connecting with the people you care about. This change is supposed to be about connecting with people. You go to the Reels tab in the Instagram app, and you'll see at the top, there's a button that shows profile images of your friends. You click that and you're in a new Reels feed of just Reels that your friends have liked. It's really, I think it can have a chilling effect. If you know that your friends can so easily find a list of what you're liking, you're likely to hesitate liking certain things. X removed public likes for that reason because they thought there was sort of a chilling effect. YouTube doesn't show likes publicly either. So it's interesting that Instagram has tried to do this. I'm not sure it's necessarily going to be a hit. And there's always going to be drama when you can see what other people are liking, because you can go through this feed and it's like, why did my friend Joe like this really terrible reel? Drama. So I see in the chat, Craig also says TikTok is working without a VPN. So maybe TikTok is back for US users. If you guys check out CapCut, is that also back? I'm curious. I wouldn't expect it to necessarily stay available all day, but it sounds like maybe something is happening. There's, of course, a lot of weirdness because the law goes into effect today and Trump doesn't take over until tomorrow. So you can't really change things today. Yeah. And Andrew says, what I like is my business and no one else's. Yes. I kind of feel like too. I kind of hate the thought of having to consider, if I like this, will, my friends think badly of me. Try not to like anything that off, but who knows? And I think I might like fewer things. So it's not that I think people will think badly of me for what I like, but that they would think badly of me because I liked 20 different videos yesterday. Yes. So shifting gears a bit, but I think on the same theme. There we go. Right. There's a new organization that is called Free Our Feeds. It has the slogan, Save Social Media from Billionaire Capture. It specifically calls out Elon Musk and Zuckerberg. And the idea is that they will help promote new apps that use the same platform as Bluesky. It's getting a huge amount of buzz because there's a bunch of famous people that have signed on, including Jimmy Wales, the founder of Wikipedia, Cory Doctorow, who writes about tech and coined the term enshittification to describe what happens to these platforms. There's journalists, there's actors. It's kind of weird. I'm not sure why anyone would care what an actor thinks about social media, but we are. And the idea is that they're going to raise money and then start trying to support people who are using the AT protocol. That's the protocol that underlies Bluesky to make new apps, and then they'll be able to federate. And federate means they can talk to each other. So someone makes a photo sharing app, and they can follow someone on Blue Sky can follow them, and there can be crosstalk. So this is similar to what happens with ActivityPub and Mastodon and PixelFed and all those apps, but it's a different protocol, technical protocol. It's kind of a weird setup where this organization is taking donations, but using GoFundMe. It's not a nonprofit. It will be interesting to see if anything comes with it, or if this is just like a big publicity push without much behind it. But this is the current vibe. People want to control what they are seeing online. And along those lines, the founder of Mastodon and the CEO, Eugene Rochko, is actually working with a group to move Mastodon into changing the business so it's a not-for-profit. And the declaration is the people should own the town square. And they say this goes towards Mastodon's principles, where you can control your own social circles, curate your timeline, convene with the community of your choosing. So the idea is that Mastodon will become a nonprofit. That's already in progress. Eugene Rochko is going to step down as the CEO. He's going to work on strategy, more technical things, and this nonprofit will keep running the servers that Mastodon is running now, mastodon.social and mastodon.online. So that's interesting, and I think it's really interesting to compare this to what's happening on another open source nonprofit, WordPress, where Matt Mullenweg, the founder, is gripping on with dear life. He really won't give up any control. Matt Mullenweg controls the WordPress Foundation. He owns the WordPress.org site. He has Automatic, his company that owns WordPress.com, and Mullenweg is basically getting rid of anyone who disagrees with him. That's the exact opposite of what's happening at Mastodon. And they may be taking what they're saying as a sort of cautionary tale. So the vibe, I think, that's out there is don't trust social platforms, take control. People still want to use social media, but they want to control what they see. And they want to, have platforms that reflect their values. I want to say hi to those of you who recently joined the chat. I see Nina, who's here as on eBoard. We have an eBoard live stream immediately after this one. And I see Diego, welcome. We've been talking about the TikTok ban, although maybe it's available now again in the US. I can't even keep up with that. And changes to the open social web, where there's really this push for people to have more control over their social media. And I think that's all part of the same story, really, where you can't trust these platforms, you can't trust the government to regulate these platforms. So join platforms where you have a say. We'll see how this pans out over the next few months. Now, I just want to shift gears a little and talk about 10 years ago this week. This is a little segment I'm making because Creator Weekly is 10 years old, and there's obviously a lot of things happening. I have 3 interesting things that launched 10 years ago this week, really quickly. Ten years ago this week, Google stopped selling Google Glass to consumers. This was via its Glass Explorer program. It never launched as a regular commercial product for consumers. But it's interesting. What I talked about last week is that Oculus, VR goggles were having a moment in 2015. And this obviously just didn't fit into that scheme. Google continued to support glass for enterprise. So think about it as being hospitals or factories where you want a sort of hands-free display and you can't just use a computer or something because you're walking around. Google kept updating Glass for years. You could even do Google Meet video calling starting in 2020, but they finally stopped producing Glass in 2023, pretty recently. And as I noted last week, Google just launched a new platform, Android XR, for extended reality, including for glasses. I think we're going to see more of it this year. I bet you there's something at Google I/O in May. That's just my guess. The second update I wanted to mention is that 10 years ago this week, Google announced the integration of Google domains with Blogger, and they were promoting this as a way for small businesses to get online. And one of the things that I note about this is that Google has been kind of flailing around how to help businesses for many years now. Definitely businesses need assistance creating a website, getting online, but creating a blog is probably not what they want to do. So with this integration, it was easy. It was a really easy way to get a custom domain on your Blogger blog. That's just not ideal for businesses. So after this, in 2017, Google launched a new business-oriented website builder, very simple sites, but oriented to businesses as part of Google My Business. But then they shut that down last year. So now businesses are on their own. Google Domains remained in beta until 2022. And then a year later, in 2023, they sold the whole thing to Squarespace. I don't know why. So Google is out of the domain business. It's mostly out of the business website business. Right? Blogger is still going, though. You can still use Blogger and link a custom domain. You just can't do it as easily as you used to. Whoops. And just wanted to say, I see you guys are talking about, Jolene says she misses her Google Glass, the best tech ever. It was really cool. But I have hopes that there are going to be cooler things that are even better. And instead of the weird looking thing, that they're going to look more like actual glasses. And Diego says his uncle had Google Glass and it was awesome. Yeah, it was pretty neat. It never really went beyond the developer stage for consumers, though. Andrew notes that Google business profiles are a mess. Yeah, I've looked at that. That's not my area of expertise, but they've made a lot of changes over the years. Again, Google doesn't seem to know what it wants to do there. And Nina says that we already survived looking at how one platform is vanishing. I assume you mean Google+. Historically, I hosted the live streaming event at that time. Yeah. So a lot of us have been through the situation where our social media platform of choice went away. It happens, and it sucks. Diego says he misses Google My Business websites. Now some businesses and schools are using Google Sites. That's interesting. Google Sites, it's not designed for businesses, to promote themselves. So it's not perfect, but at least it's integrated with Google Workspace if you're using that. All right, one last thing really quickly. The last update, I wanted to mention this because it's not just Google that's confused. The Twitch music library launched 10 years ago this week. It was pre-cleared music for streamers to use live and in videos on demand. They also launched the music category on Twitch in beta. But trying to understand what happened to this is confusing. Apparently, it just went away sometime in 2019 or early 2020. There's no announcement. There's a bunch of people on Reddit saying, where did this go? So they just kind of quietly shut it down. But then in 2020, Twitch had a bunch of problems with music companies doing DMCA copyright takedowns. They launched a new music option called Soundtrack by Twitch in the fall 2020. Sounds like it's basically the same thing. It's pre-cleared music you could use. Soundtrack was shut down in 2023, apparently because people weren't using it that much. And now they just recommend third-party sites to get your music. I think a big problem with these libraries is that people want to play the music that they want to play. The library doesn't necessarily include the tunes that you want to play. So those are this week's updates. I'm keeping an eye on what's happening with CapCut and TikTok. We shall see. Thank you for joining me today. There's another live stream right after this. It should automatically redirect if you're interested. And I will see you all next week.